Okay. All right, good evening. Thanks everybody for being here. We appear to have a quorum. The meeting of the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority Citizens Advisory Committee is now called to order at 7:01. Caroline, would you be so kind as to call roll?
Yes.
A reminder to please turn on your mics. When you respond to your name for roll call, you then turn off your mic. Thanks so much.
Aaron Gill, not present. Frank Kinsella.
Present.
Robert Sipple, not present. Allison Falwell. Here. Lauren Lewis.
Present.
Raj Banat.
Here.
Justin Fields.
Here.
Dan Kenny.
Here.
Kathy Sutherland, not present. Steve Mink, not present. Lonnie Wong Bassett, not present. Mira Burton, not present. Edward Von Rennen.
Here. And we have a quorum. Thank you, everybody. At this time, any members of the public will have an opportunity to address the committee on any item not on the agenda. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any? There are none. Thanks so much. Okay, so at this time, I would entertain motions to approve the minutes from, when did we last meet? September 25th of this year. Thank you so much. That's a first from Dan and a second from Frank. A first from Dan, a second from Frank. Can we do show of hands votes yet?
Not yet, because we are hybrid.
Okay, all right. So same rules, roll call, mics on, mics off, and so on and so forth. Thanks, Caroline.
Frank Kinsella.
Yes.
Allison Falwell. Aye. Lauren Lewis.
Approved.
Raj Banat.
Approved.
Justin Fields.
Aye.
Dan Kenny.
Aye.
Ed Von Rennen.
Aye. Okay, that is unanimously approved. So now we have our new business. Members of the public will have the opportunity to comment on any of these items. They will be limited to 3 minutes. Our first item is an informational item. It's a presentation on communication work and accomplishments for the 2023 calendar year and remaining fiscal year.
Through the chair, did you want to do an opening report first?
Oh yeah. I did want to remind everybody, thank you for that. I did want to remind everybody that the end of the year is coming up. You will be contacted if your term is expiring. So if your term is expiring, please be ready to respond. If you're in this room right now, you're a face I see a lot and an active participant, and we would love to have you back. So please keep an eye out for that. Also, a reminder that we will be at our next meeting, we'll be electing new chair and vice chair. So if you have any interest in that, now is the time to start considering that. Not that you don't need to have signatures on a petition. The campaign is relatively cheap. But yeah, something to consider this time of year. So now, new business. Any public comments on the first item? Hearing none, take it away.
Thank you. Go tall enough for you, but not too tall for them. Okay. See if we can do that. Perfect. Thank you and good evening, everyone. My name is Charlotte Graham, and I'm the Public Information Officer here at the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. So in my position, I'm responsible for overseeing the communications team and strategies. And tonight we're presenting our annual communications and media update. It's going to cover the 2023 calendar year to date, and we're going to go a little bit into 2024 as well, kind of what's ahead. So I'm very excited to have my team presenting tonight. I mentioned in our item report that we also gave this presentation at the October 12th board meeting. That was our first time since 2019 presenting as a team in person, so that was really exciting for us. So very happy to be here in person with all of you tonight. So we have had a few changes since our last communications update in 2022 that I wanted to call out tonight. The first being that we have a new teammate, which is our public affairs intern, Adeline Huddy, and unfortunately she's not able to be here tonight, but her work will be represented in this presentation. And while Anna Marie is not new to our team, she's going to come up and introduce her new title and role, what her role entails. And our final staff update is that Katie, our communications coordinator, will be moving out of state in December after 3+ years here at the Open Space Authority. So we're very grateful for all that she's done during her time here with us. So like I said, a lot of changes since the last time we present, more changes to come in 2024. So with that, I'm going to ask my teammates to come up and introduce themselves.
Hello, CAC. My name is Anna Marie Plan, and I'm the Multimedia Communications Specialist with the communications team, as Charlotte mentioned. I got a new title this year, so previously I was the Community Engagement Coordinator. So yeah, great to see everyone tonight.
Good evening, CAC. As Charlotte mentioned, I'm Katie Simon, our Communications Coordinator. I've been in charge of most of our written content for the last 3 years, and it's been a great 3 years, so thank you.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started with our ladder of engagement. So this is a guiding framework that we use to help us deepen community participation through these escalating steps. So as you can see, this starts with easy actions like following us on social media, and then it moves up to things like visiting our website and then engaging in person. For example, visiting an open space preserve or one of our environmental education events. It also includes signing up for our email communications, which a lot of people do when they're engaging with our wonderful volunteers and staff when we're all out tabling in the community and interacting with the public at local events. So finally, at the top of the ladder, we see more sustained actions like becoming a volunteer or an advocate for the agency. So this framework is really just a piece of our role as communicators. And during this presentation, you're going to be learning about how we help increase awareness of the Open Space Authority, build important environmental intelligence within our communities, using traditional and new media, and as well as how our team provides support for other departments within the agency. That last piece is really important to us because as communicators, we never work alone. We do not work in a vacuum. We work and engage with every single team here at the Open Space Authority so that we can align our actions with our words and create more effective, intentional, and more equitable communication strategies. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Anna Marie now, and she's going to talk about social media.
Okay, so can everyone hear me? Yes. So before I dive right into the individual social media platforms, I want to share highlights across social media as a whole. Regardless of the specific platform, our audiences continue to love 2 big categories the most, which is wildlife and wildflowers. Here's a snapshot just of some of our most loved posts from this year. We've got this cool snake guide, this amazing video of tarantulas mating up at Sierra Vista, some elk, and of course wildflowers. People love all of them. An additional success we saw on social media this year came from the coverage of the winter storms across open space. So thanks to drone footage and photos, we illustrated the importance of nature as infrastructure, like in Coyote Valley, when it comes to flood protection. So you can see here some of the posts that we shared this year. And our audiences really, really loved it. So you can see here just a snapshot of some of the comments we got posting this type of content earlier this year. So people were really, really excited to see, literally visually see the way that nature does protect us when we protect nature. So moving along now to the specific platforms. As social media as a whole continues to grow more and more oversaturated with content, One of our main tasks is to stay on top of each platform's updates and ever-changing algorithms to help our content perform the best that it can and reach as many people as possible. So concerning the specific social media platforms, I'd just like to remind you that each platform does have its own specific strategy and goal. For example, Facebook has our largest audiences and the biggest spread of demographics, so you get the most diversity of users. We share a really wide variety of content on Facebook, open space news and updates, beautiful nature photos, educational content, and we also like to promote our upcoming events through Facebook the most. Instagram, on the other hand, has a little bit of a lighter, fun environment. So we can participate there in social media trends, maybe use a little bit more of a playful voice on Instagram. It has a slightly younger leaning demographic for audiences. We also have really, really high engagement on Instagram. So we have the most interactions with users through comments, through private messages. It's definitely the place that people are talking to us and we're talking back to them. YouTube is a little bit less active. We mainly use it for posting the virtual program recordings that the environmental education team puts out, and then other video content as it comes up, but it's definitely not as constant as Instagram and Facebook that we're posting basically every day of the week. So this year we also scaled back our presence on X, which was formerly Twitter, due to a lot of changes in the platform over the last year. And using that energy and that capacity to prioritize other channels that are going to allow us to reach even more people in our jurisdiction. So we're still using the platform as needed. It's a useful way to connect with the media and some of our other partners. Additionally, we launched the Open Space Authority's presence on Nextdoor this year after the platform finally allowed special districts like ours to create accounts. It was something we were waiting on for a really long time, and they finally open that feature up to us as a special district. So this is a really, really big step because basically all users on Nextdoor that live within our jurisdiction, they're auto subscribed to receive our posts and to see them. So we don't need to build followers from scratch. We don't need to do any work to expand or target our reach. We don't need to put any advertising money into reaching every single person in our jurisdiction because they're automatically going to get those posts. And we're already seeing a really big success with that, with this platform. One of our first posts, you can see the screenshot here, was to share a community survey for the Coyote Valley Conservation Areas Master Plan. And the post organically reached over 70,000 users in just a few days. So again, no advertising money was put into that. We didn't do any extra targeting. We just posted it and saw the results. So lastly, we took a really, really big step with our social media ambassador strategy by partnering with local content creators to reach new audiences in pretty new and fun and exciting ways. On September 7th of this year, we hosted the pilot event for our new ambassador program. For this event, we invited a bunch of local content creators. Sometimes you'll hear them called influencers or Instagram influencers, who all post content within the outdoor education / hiking / conservation space and niche. So with this event, we gave them the opportunity to enjoy the sunset at Maya-Yakima Coyote Ridge Open Space Preserve just barely a week after it actually opened to the public. So it was kind of a sneak peek, first look event. We had them learn about the habitat and the new butterfly pass system and hear more about just what we do as an agency. Our goals in hosting this event, we wanted to reach a wider audience and spread the word about the new preserve, and the special steps that guests need to take before visiting, as well as we just wanted to foster working relationships with these ambassadors and kind of take that first step in partnering with them, hopefully for the future. Overall, the event was a really, really big success. We had 14 influencers join us, which was right about what we were predicting and our goal for the event. These 14 influencers have a combined following of almost 340,000 people. So all the followers combined of those 14. And then after the event, there were a lot of posts that they shared tagging us with educational content about the preserve, the habitat, the butterfly pass, leave no trace. They even demonstrated like how to use the boot brushes. So it was really, really cool to see that, again, within hours of this event, they were already posting about it. And then over the next few weeks, we would get more and more posts, and just really exciting to see that, again, those really organic partnerships start to bloom. And then just over the next few days, we gained over 60 followers just from their content. Well, probably just from their content alone, which is really good for us for just a week of Instagram. And yeah, it was really awesome to see how excited they were to interact with us, but then also build relationships with these other content creators in their niche, and kind of starting to build our own little community of ambassadors from the ground up. So the event allowed us to build the desired relationships, and hopefully work more with these partners in the future. We're thinking about having another event like this in the spring at Maya Yakima to educate everyone about wildflower season. And we're really looking forward to that. So moving from social media up that ladder of engagement to the website. So as of October this year, we had over 170,000 page views across the whole website. We're in the process, we worked with our web developers earlier this year to conduct a user experience audit to make improvements to our website based on research-backed information. And that's really important to actually get research and data to show us the best way to keep improving our website. So we had a couple initial takeaways from the audit that revealed two main things. So for one, users responded really positively when arriving to our website. They really liked the way it looked and just the general feel and aesthetic of the website. We also discovered through the audit, though, that we had some opportunities to improve the website. So for example, updating the navigation and the organization of the site so that people can find things more easily and with less frustration. So this is going to include reorganizing our content, placing the most important information right up top to where users are actually interacting the most. So we're really excited to work on these improvements. We're kind of already starting that with additional website work and rolling this into next year to keep working on these updates. And I am sorry, that was too far. So at the same time with these kind of general user experience updates, we're also focusing on ADA compliance of the website. We are now working with a service provider to make these important updates and better reach accessibility compliance moving forward. So that's going to be a really never-ending task, just to make sure that our website remains accessible, gets up to the standards, and then remains accessible for all users who are going to visit. A few other recent updates to the website this past year included the addition of a Know Before You Go section to each open space preserves page. So that includes like FAQs, important information specific to each preserve that people can easily access before they visit the trails. For example, people love going to Sierra Vista to watch the sunset. So there's a specific in the Know Before You Go information about this is how when's the preserves open. If you want to get there for the sunset, you have to arrive early. So again, it's really curated for each preserve and hopefully making that information a lot more discoverable for potential visitors. We also added the new urban grant success stories. So this was working with our grants team. We updated our website with the newest 19 grant projects that were awarded funding this year to further highlight our work in connecting people to nature across our jurisdiction, as well as the amazing organizations that we are supporting through these grants. And so for the last main website update, I'm going to hand it over to Katie to talk about 2022 year in review.
Yes, thank you, Anna Marie. So we also saw a lot of success with our 2022 year in review report, which we translated into Spanish and Vietnamese and promoted through multicultural media outlets. As you'll see in your packet, this webpage received over 3 times as much engagement as it did the previous year, with nearly 18,500 views. And what's really exciting is that all 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, received a relatively equal amount of engagement rather than English being the dominant language. In fact, the Spanish version was the most popular with nearly 7,000 views. This tells us that there is demand for our content in languages other than English, and that using resources to translate important content is highly worthwhile. And next, I'll be talking about email outreach. So in the beginning of our 30th anniversary year, we implemented an updated research-based newsletter layout to increase readability, click rates, and overall appearance. There's a little before and after. We removed the sidebar and opted for a single column, so you can read the entire newsletter just by scrolling down once. This version is much more mobile friendly as well, accommodating a large portion of folks who read emails from their phones. We also shortened the blurbs using a few attention-grabbing sentences to prompt readers to go to our blog and read the full stories. As far as general trends go, we've seen a few changes this year. As you'll see in your packet, we saw a slight drop in email open rate. This could be due to a variety of reasons, including an increasing subscriber base and ever-changing email privacy policies that make it difficult to see accurate open rates. While we noticed a decrease in our open rates, however, we've seen exciting increases in other metrics. We recorded a nearly 40% increase in our click-through rate and a considerable increase in our average click rate. And further, we are consistently seeing read-through rates of nearly 80%. This, in combination with the click rates, tells us that our audience is interested in our content and finds value in reading the newsletter, as well as reading the full stories in our blog. Finally, as you may have noticed reading our emails, we use storytelling to emphasize each of a few key themes every month, including land stewardship, climate resilience, wildlife, agriculture, recreation, and community. We do this to keep our content diverse and interesting, as well as to capture the vast breadth of the authority's pretty incredible work. And lastly, I'll be talking about the blog. So we continue publishing 2 to 5 blog articles every month, which are featured in our email newsletter. Further, we frequently update old blog posts to keep them current and to avoid redundancy. And repurposing older content keeps our audience older content to our audience helps increase our search engine optimization, our efficiency, and the shelf life of the content that we publish. So our most popular posts on the blog this year was our Snakes of the South Bay article, which received nearly 6,000 views. And similar to our social media audiences, our blog audience really enjoys wildlife content as well as beautiful landscapes. And this explains why the next 2 most popular articles of the year were related to wildflowers. As I mentioned earlier, one of our ongoing goals is increasing the accessibility of the information we publish and ultimately increasing access to outdoor spaces. This involves working to write content that is plain language and translating pertinent or instructional blogs into Spanish and Vietnamese so our audience can be viewed by a wider audience. Or so our articles can be viewed by a wider audience, excuse me. As we continue this work, a priority for our team is transcreation of content. This involves using bilingual, culturally informed parties to collaborate on content at the beginning of the process rather than translating content already produced in English. This summer, we issued an RFP for multicultural public relations and ethnic media services to assist in these efforts. A vendor, Amaredia, was selected and then approved by our board of directors in September, and we're beginning work with them to reach multilingual households across our jurisdiction. And with that, I'll hand it back to Charlotte.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, let's talk media. So we, of course, try to engage in earned media, which is publicity that we've gained from methods other than paid advertising. So earned media is a very important and effective tool for the Open Space Authority to spread awareness about the agency and help amplify our mission-driven messaging. This year, we focused a lot of our media pitching on our 30th anniversary. And we've just had a lot of really exciting things to pitch to local news outlets this year. So we had the 2023 Urban Grant Awards, the opening of Mayan Oyakma Coyote Ridge Open Space Preserve in August. And while we do try to reserve a lot of our media pitching for like really big newsworthy announcements, occasionally we do have other opportunities to work with reporters where we take a more opportunistic approach. So for example, earlier this year in July, a juvenile mountain lion was found deceased on Santa Teresa Boulevard in North Coyote Valley. So while we didn't specifically pitch this out as a story to the local news, we did post about it on social media. And that kind of went viral. It caught the attention of a reporter from NBC Bay Area and then others. So it kind of snowballed. So with interest from all of this local broadcast media, we really leveraged the opportunity to talk about the importance of protected, connected open space, wildlife crossings, slowing down on the roads, especially in places like Coyote Valley, which provide really important connections for wildlife to move between the Santa Cruz Mountains and the Diablo Range. Oh. I'm not done with this slide, sorry. So as a result, we saw over half a dozen stories go out on the local broadcast stations and news sites about the mountain lion. And so it just goes to show that sometimes it is random, but we are always prepared to respond to media inquiries and to help educate the public and just get out our mission-driven messaging. So to date, we've had almost 350 media mentions and news stories. This is about a 570% increase from the amount of coverage that we had in 2022. So, of course, we have had a lot of things worth celebrating this year. And I will say that Mayan Oyakma Coyote Ridge, the opening, did account for about 77% of the total media coverage that we've seen so far for this year. So looking at all of this coverage, that includes traditional print, radio, television, as well as ethnic media coverage. So stories in other languages, Spanish, Vietnamese, Chinese, and to assist in these efforts, we distribute press releases, media advisories, we do some paid advertorials, and we continue building relationships with local reporters who show an interest in our work. One other strategy that we used this year, which we hadn't used previously, was we used a tool called a newswire service to help spread the word about Mayan Oyakma Coyote Ridge. And that means it took our press release and it made it available to a really broad range of news outlets and reporters. And that was very successful. In terms of other projects and initiatives, I am not going to read through this whole list, but as you can see, the communications team assists with quite a few projects that are being led by other departments. You may have heard of some of these. Some of these might be new things that you'll be learning more about soon. And there are many more. This is just a sampling. And happy to go into detail if you have questions about any of these specifically, but just highlighting a few from 2023 and some others that are going to be coming up for the remainder of the fiscal year through June 2024. So as I mentioned earlier, the communications team here, we continually collaborate across departments on a variety of projects to tell the story of our mission-driven work, to connect people to nature, and we really want to make people feel like when they go to the open space preserves, their open space preserves, like they belong and they are welcome. So we're the central point for public inquiries. We help field staff and volunteers engage with preserve visitors by making sure they have access to up-to-date messaging and up-to-date information about our work and initiatives. And we also provide timely information through public updates, website, social media, but also to our board staff and of course our Citizens Advisory Committee members. So you probably get lots of emails from me giving you updates on when things are open or closed, and those are going to continue, and thank you for reading those and staying up to date. So looking ahead, of course, we already have some really fun content ideas for 2024. And if you have fun ideas, we'd love to hear them. But our 30th anniversary is not over yet. We will be, before the end of the year, finalizing a 30-year look back. So that'll be a digital story map that's going to take the place of our annual year in review. So that's an annual report that we put out. And even though it's really hard to believe that, for me, it's hard to believe that we're already talking about 2024 and it's almost December, we are very excited to celebrate a few more milestones coming up. So in the spring of 2024, that'll be our first butterfly season at Mayan Oyakma Coyote Ridge. And so making sure that people have their 2024 butterfly pass and that they're aware of the opportunities to go out and visit the preserve on the weekends through docent-led tours, March through May. So that'll be a big happening for communications and all the teams across the Open Space Authority. And then we're also working on some expanded public access. So we're collaborating very closely with the planning and the field team to plan some celebrations for a new bridge and day use area out at Rancho Cañada del Oro Open Space Preserve. And this project is really just the beginning of what will eventually become a new connection to the Bay Area Ridge Trail. So a lot to look forward to and to celebrate in 2024, and a lot more information on all of that to come. So as we're concluding here, I just want to say thank you to all of you for your contributions to the Open Space Authority and furthering our mission and the work that we do. Thank you to my team. Thank you, Mark, our public affairs leader. And with that, we're happy to take any questions that you might have tonight.
Okay, thanks. A reminder to the CAC to be like Ed. If you have a question, turn on your mic and then try to get eye contact with me. I'll recognize you and then I will call you live, just like this. Go for it, Ed.
Just curious, what are these slow and say hello bike bells?
Yeah, so that's an upcoming project that we have in the works. So we do have some Open Space Authority branded bicycle bells. And we've already had a bicycle event where some of those were passed out, but essentially educating visitors about trail etiquette and being sure to slow down on the trails, especially as you're coming around turns. Slow down, ring your bell, say hello to folks as you pass, and just use good courtesy out on the trails. Be safe.
Great, thank you. Thanks for all the great information there.
Allison.
I'm so happy to hear about that slow and go bike bell. As someone who's on foot a lot on these trails. I want to say first, thank you. I think all of the work you do is amazing, but I really personally especially appreciate the website and all of the very timely updates about what trails are open and closed. I use that all the time and it's always up to date, and I really appreciate that. I'm sure it's a ton of work to keep that live, but really job well done. One question I had is, what would you say are one or maybe two things that we as members of the Citizens Advisory Committee can do to support your work and help engage with the community in our role as members of this committee? I'd hope to hear how we can help you.
Thank you for that question. And team, please feel free to jump in if you have other ideas, but certainly engaging with our content and sharing that out is always really helpful. The things that we put in our newsletter and that we're putting out on social media are typically fairly timely. Those updates that you were talking about on the website, things that are closed, big announcements, those are all things that we would love for you to share within your communities. If you have special recreation interests, we're always, we love to get feedback from folks. So if you have ideas on ways to reach new communities, or you're part of specific groups where we can help share this message and share all the things that we're doing, we're very open to your suggestions and to hear feedback. We love to hear what people are saying out at the preserves and how they're interacting with the content that we put out.
Cool, thank you. I am Lorensky on all meta platforms and D Lorensky on Twitter. And I try to participate as much as I can. How do you guys decide what platforms to chase and what platforms to ignore? For example, Twitter, it'll be a while before I can call it anything else. Like, it has gone through a lot of radical changes, and you guys have adapted and used it and began to use it differently. But also the landscape out there changes all the time with the TikToks and the Snapchats, and they're all used differently by different audiences. How do you guys, what's your decision-making process for when you dive in and when you let it go? And
yeah, there's a lot of intentionality behind our platforms, but Anna Marie, do you want to come up and speak to that?
It's a really good question, because ideally we would be on every single platform doing 110% on every single platform, but we'd rather, focus on a select and do a really, really good job on those than try to spread ourselves so thin and do like a med job on every single platform, right? We're not on Pinterest, we're not on TikTok. So a lot of it is based on just research, on market research and looking at the demographics, looking at our own demographics, because we can go and see what's the general age range, and that's a lot of what we're looking at. But then also just the general, like, of all of Instagram, what's the general demographic of all of Facebook? So sometimes it's like, for example, we first launched our Instagram in 2019 because we really were missing hitting those younger audiences. Facebook at that point was already starting to skew older. And we knew that most younger people were on Instagram. So that's just one specific example of really going where the audience we want to reach is. And then, yeah, I mean, that's as much as I think that it could really come down to research on who's on the platform. And another example, going to platforms that are really visual based. So again, Instagram is all about the visuals. We're a land protection agency, we're an open space agency. Pictures are worth so many words, and we have these beautiful images. Let's let the images speak for themselves. Let's go where images are like king. Yeah, I could go on and on about why we're on some, but that's yeah, those are some big ones.
I mean, it's just as interesting, like, how to know which ones to stay away from, right? Like, you know, because there could be, you know, some that just they're not going to be around for a while, or maybe they
Right.
have a bit of a fringe audience that you maybe don't want to associate yourself. So
Yeah.
it's just as interesting to know, like, when to stay away, right?
Mhm.
So, but you've answered my question. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks.
Anybody else? Okay. This is an information only item. We don't have to make any motions or vote on anything. The members of the public are allowed to speak on this topic, okay? Is this the topic we wish to speak on?
It is.
All right, you will have 3 minutes to do so.
Thank you. My name is Doug Muirhead, Morgan Hill resident. In the old days, I used to say I was data driven. Now I say I'm data informed. And so I'd like to know how you're being informed. There were a number of references to, having research oriented results, but I have no idea what your techniques are. I'd be curious, perhaps the committee would as well, to know a little bit about some of the ways they're becoming informed in order to make these changes. Thank you.
Okay, so Charlotte, would you like an opportunity to respond, or?
Sure.
Okay,
I'm happy to also.
We can both respond if you.
It's a good question.
Well, yeah, it's a great question. And my response is that every platform is a little bit different, and we're looking at different metrics for everyone. And so when it comes to the website, we've done a user experience audit. So that's through testing, having people use the website and go through a series of tests to see how they're navigating. Social media, there's a lot of analytics we have to work with that we can compare sort of trends year after year, but I don't know if you want to speak a little more to that.
Yeah, that's the big picture. And as I mentioned, like, some of the data from social media is looking at our specific analytics. So our Instagram account, how many people did we reach this week? Because Instagram and Meta does provide all of those analytics. And some of it is market research. So going to, I could look up the list of sources if you're interested, but every year different agencies do go through and gather metrics on things like email opens and going through benchmarks for specific fields to see. So comparing our own data that we're getting every month, every day through the platforms, and comparing that with data that's been gathered by other institutions.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
thanks for responding. I know that kind of puts you guys on the spot, so thanks so much. Okay, so I believe we move now to our next new item, which is another informational item. It's a report from the field. I love those. A presentation on field operations work and accomplishments from Andres and Megan.
She's told.
We don't usually get this much microphone adjustment.
All right. Good evening, CAC. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Megan Robinson, and I'm the supervising open space technician for South County Properties. So it is my pleasure to provide an update on the field department tonight for fiscal year 22-23 and the first quarter of 23-24. It's been an incredible time for the field department.
And hello, my name is Andres Campesano, supervising open space technician for the North County team. So it's been a time of growth in both responsibilities and in staffing to meet those additional responsibilities. We're gonna kind of just show you the people we've added.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I'm the supervisor for the South County team. So this is my team right here, which consists of 4 full-time staff and 5 part-time 28-hour-a-week aides that were recently added, as well as 1 full-time 6-month seasonal. And so our 2 main preserves that we manage that are open are the Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve and Rancho Cañada del Oro, as well as a handful of other properties that we help manage in the South Bay.
Okay, now this is my team. So we have now the 7 full-time staff, 4 part-timers, the 28-hour-a-week aides, and then 2 full-time 6-month seasonal aides. And then this team here, we manage Sierra Vista and then Moyono Yakima Coyote Ridge.
Another part of the field program is our VETS team, the volunteer educational team. And though they haven't grown in size over this last 15 months, they've definitely grown in responsibilities and programs that they've offered to the public. And they're a great addition to our program.
And last, this is Dave Tharp. He's our full-time equipment operator, fixer of everything, which that just starts to describe what he does. I wrote down builds trail, fixes roads, installs culverts, helped us build gates, installed all of the electric light bars on our vehicles for safety. He's also does all our solar pumps for any troughs that we're going to be putting in. So just really a very valuable member of our team. Lucky to have him. All right. So the addition of Moyono Yakima Coyote Ridge and operating the habitat protection area. So this is a high-touch preserve with extremely sensitive habitat. High touch, what does that mean? So staff is to greet visitors upon arrival and make sure they have their butterfly pass. Now we do that 7 days a week. Volunteers on the weekends to assist visitors in answering questions and providing a resource to obtain that free butterfly pass. Routine trail patrols to provide an extra level of protection for the natural resource of Moyono Yakima Coyote Ridge. Field staff volunteers have risen to the occasion, gathering data to assist in future visitor management planning. To date, 75% of visitors arriving at the preserve have a butterfly pass and only 3 incidents of visitors off trail. Now Sierra Vista. Thank you, Megan. Sunsets at Sierra Vista continue to be a popular South Bay attraction. So the staff adjustments to 2 staff to help manage the overflow of visitors. We close the gates 1 hour before close, so that's 30 minutes before sunset. Field staff has still been dealing with some behavioral issues from visitors at sunset. So that's ongoing and we are monitoring that. And it's really because they're showing up late. They're not checking the website for the frequently asked and they're showing up late, still expecting to get a spot in one of those lots. So the team has to redirect them to Ed Levin or just come back maybe a little earlier next time. Because every night it does fill up. So the consequences of not managing the lot are visitor-to-visitor confrontations. And we have seen some of those when we're not there because they're fighting for those prime spots. Backed up traffic onto Sierra Road and then illegally parking along Sierra Road. These are some of the challenges program staff work through each day to ensure our visitors have a safe and welcome place to recreate and enjoy nature.
All right. So throughout the past 15 months, program staff have worked on numerous other projects, such as the construction of the new trail at Moyono Yakima Coyote Ridge, vegetation control projects throughout our lands, primarily for invasive plant control and fuel reductions, installation of wildlife-friendly fencing, trash cleanup, and a host of other projects.
Often staff work with volunteers who support and augment the capabilities of staff. So the winter of 23 saw an unusually wet year, which brought many challenges. It impacted the construction of Moyono-Yakima Coyote Ridge. There was many delays in being able to work due to poor soil conditions and access constraints. Rescheduling of the California Conservation Corps many times. It started to appear that every time we scheduled for the CCC to be out, they would get rained out. Storm damages and FEMA repairs. Some have been completed and others are still ongoing and awaiting the right conditions. All work will be done internally, and the growth of the staffing and the equipment that we have gained over the past year helps allow us to perform these tasks, which previously were contracted out. There is still a slide on Picardo, which continues to be a problem during large rain events that we will be getting to soon. And engineering to permanently repair is not covered by FEMA, so we have to kind of keep doing these Band-Aid fixes on it, which we're going to be working on in the next few months. There's also a slip out on Catamount Trail where the trail is slid down the embankment, and the bulk of the work that we have done has been debris cleanup resulting from a lot of fallen trees in the area. The saturated soils and high winds impacted a large number of trees throughout the South Bay, including on our preserves. Staff have been out during and immediately after to remove trees that have come down along roads and trails. And some of these are access roads where neighbors live, like Casaloma Road, past Rancho Cañada del Oro Preserve. So what the staff do is they go out and create a corridor so that vehicles can pass safely so they can get access to their homes, as well as get access to emergency services if so needed. And then later we go back and do a more detailed cleanup of the debris. We've also had to do a lot of debris removal within the Yagas Creek corridor. This change and adaptation is necessary for continued growth and safety. And over the past 15 months, program staff have worked to improve the safety of our facilities and assist in the care of our natural resources and meet the need to move to more eco-friendly tools.
So the improvements at Tilton included upgrading the electrical distribution to the various outbuildings. These structures are used by staff to perform their daily operations of property management throughout our preserve system. Upgrades include the installation of a new service panel, additional outlets, enhanced shop lighting, motion lights for nighttime security, and replacing existing electrical work that presented a safety hazard. With the addition of the natural resource manager, field program staff have been working closely with the new department to ensure our lands continue to receive the care and attention they have received over the last 2 decades under the field department. This transition has been seamless, and program staff have been instrumental in working seamlessly with the natural resource staff. That has been one of the highlights of the past year, and it really just amplifies the authorities we look at for each other kind of attitude, as well as that can do, which we all do quite well. So starting in the early part of fiscal year 22-23, program staff continue to transition to battery operated tools. So this transition will be complete this fiscal year. Program staff are reporting that the new technology has performed adequately to date. There have been some bugs and issues of which the manufacturers have honored warranties and other repaired or replaced faulty equipment. It has been a learning process to determine how long batteries last based on the tasks being asked of them, like how to carry the fuel, which are the batteries, which can often weigh much more than just the liquid or the gasoline, diesel type power equipment that we would use. Staff has been creative with their solutions to this, from designing attachments to harnesses to strategically placing fuel depots along project work sites. Overall, staff are excited to see the change to battery operated tools and look forward as the technology continues to improve and performance of the tools are enhanced.
All right, I would like to conclude this presentation by acknowledging all of the many tasks that are asked of our field program staff. They truly have unique jobs here in the San Francisco Bay Area, from engaging our visitors and welcoming them to our properties, assisting visitors in finding the best routes to take while out on the preserves, providing natural resource protection through verbal compliance engagements, as well as engagements with the visitors who are not obeying our rules and regulations, working on the lands themselves by maintaining and repairing trails, roads, fences, and other infrastructure, maintaining vegetation to enhance the biodiversity and provide a modified fuel load to reduce the risk of wildfire, working with our grazing tenants and working with our other departments within the authority to prepare and set up for authority-hosted events. These are just a small snapshot of what our field program staff do on a daily basis. They are truly generalists, and if you ask any of them, they will answer with a huge grin that the work they perform is a labor of love and that they would not trade it for anything. We have an incredibly dedicated and engaged staff that truly love what they do. And at this point, I would like to open the floor for any questions.
Thank you a ton. I appreciate you guys a lot. In addition to sitting here, I am a frequent preserve user, and although I have to admit some bias, I think it's an unbiased opinion when I say that you guys maintain the best trails and particularly the best year-round traction in the area. It's unique and very welcome. So thank you so much. I appreciate you guys' time. I am not seeing, oh, yes, I do see now a question. Please go ahead, Justin.
What's the status of the bridge at Rancho? The new bridge, at least.
I need to ask Lucas. So they're working through it. They've got the footings in. They're waiting for the concrete to cure. They should be out of the riparian zone soon, and they are slowly but surely plugging away at it. I don't know the end date, but it is in sight as far as I know. So, but I can get you some more info. I can reach out to Lucas and Jen. Yeah.
You can go look at it. It's there.
Yeah. It's sitting in the meadow. The bridge is
It just won't
on
get you
site.
there. It just won't get
Yeah. Well,
That's exciting though. It's actually there. It's
Yeah.
gonna happen. Really excited.
So at this time, members of the public will have an opportunity to comment on this item. They will be given 3 minutes to do so. I saw some paper being passed.
Thank you again, Doug Muirhead, Morgan Hill. 2 questions. There was a mention of trash cleanup. And I'd like to know if that's illegal dumping or whether it's trail litter. I've never seen litter on any of your trails, but you don't have trash cans at the parking lot. So hopefully this is an illegal dumping issue and you can deal with that. Second question, for some reason, I was reminded many months ago, I was encouraged to learn something new by attending a planning meeting of the board. And I gave Mark credit for something. And I didn't give credit to Derek for his telling us that the electrification in the backpacks meant lighter weight tools, which resulted in less fatigue, which I thought was awesome. So my question on that subject is, what are your next steps on electrification of tools and vehicles?
Just so as a point of order here, it does specifically say time for comment. Because staff hasn't necessarily had time to prepare for questions from the public. So I indulged the question the first time, but I will leave it at their discretion for the second time.
Well, and that's what I would like you to do. I'm not demanding an answer, but we have the opportunity to speak to the experts. And if you find the question within your scope, then I would be more than happy to have you also give staff the opportunity to answer. If they choose not to, that's fine as well.
You have the floor.
Yeah, I can answer the trash one, at least as for my team at Sierra Vista. We spend probably 15 minutes a day, I would say, picking up trash on an opening shift. That's from people that have come after hours. And illegally dumping, the entrance to Moyono Yakima before we built that was the spot that we were having a lot of trouble with illegal dumping. Since we've opened it, it has not happened.
Right.
So that's fingers crossed we can we change that behavior. That's just a couple examples that I thought of right away from my team that I've had to deal with.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, and a little bit more on that. The majority is illegal dumping or roadside trash. So we do take time just along Santa Teresa corridor. On the weekends, I'll have the staff, spend maybe an hour just walking Santa Teresa, since we own a lot of the properties along that corridor, just picking up general trash. As far as out on the trails, it's minimal. It's usually a tissue or a bottle cap, but not major garbage out on the preserves, luckily. And the no garbage cans has worked well. Sierra Vista is the only preserve that does have garbage cans, but other than that, people have just learned to pack out their trash. And then we don't have people who pull into the preserves to use our garbage cans to clean out their cars. And then we have constant overflowing garbage bags. And then as far as the electrification of our tools, currently we have the chainsaws, weed eaters, pole saws, hedgers, that little miniature looking truck, and a car that is electrified. But other than that, we haven't ventured into the work truck yet. I think there's talk about that, but we're waiting for technology to catch up a little bit more.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
And thanks for the extra work on the trash. That's kind of a pet peeve of mine as well. Are there any other questions of the committee and any other questions from the public? Thank you so much. Again, we really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next new item is another informational item. It's a report on amendments to the Open Space Authority Enabling Act and other legislative updates. Legislative updates. I bet we are welcoming Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the CAC, Mr. Chair. Mark Landgraf, External Affairs Manager here at the Authority. And this item is describing the Enabling Act amendments that are moving forward with the approval of the board back on October 26th. So I'm just going to go through the context here for these Enabling Act amendments and then talk about each one in detail. Most of the information is in your packet, but please feel free to ask questions at any point. And Mr. Muirhead, I'm going to be really disappointed if I don't get a comment from you at the end. I'm going to feel left out. So context here is that as you saw in your packets, there have already been a number of amendments over the years to the Enabling Act of the Open Space Authority. The most recent one was in 2019 with the passage of AB 948 that created the Coyote Valley Conservation Program. So additional sections were added to our Enabling Act to instantiate that statutory language. All of that is captured within the California Public Resources Code in the sections that you see identified in your packet. So we do make amendments from time to time when there's a need to update items. Generally, it's just so that we can be more effective at the work that we do. And so the proposed amendments, and I'll go through not just those that the board approved, there were 3 of them, but actually all 4 that were proposed by staff. So the first one, and this is the one that got rejected by the board, was to raise the board compensation from $75 to $100 per meeting. And that would have also allowed the board to increase their compensation from time to time, I think on an annual basis, based on what other public agencies are allowed to do. But they rejected that item on the basis that they do this because they love the work, not because of, $75 versus $100. So that amendment will not be moving forward. The second proposed amendment was land protection in the Diablo Range. So given our growing partnership with Save Mount Diablo, especially, they're a nonprofit that had been working around Mount Diablo State Park primarily, but has expanded their scope to include the Diablo Range throughout the range, because there aren't really a lot of nonprofits working in that area. The Nature Conservancy sometimes does. There are also some smaller land trusts, like one working in San Benito County, but in general, Save Mount Diablo would be the one seeking to connect wildlife habitat and wildlife corridors throughout the Diablo Range that we then are working to connect to the Santa Cruz Mountains through Coyote Valley and along the Pajaro River. And so with that, currently there's language in our Enabling Act that specifies that we cannot buy land from sellers east of the westernmost ridge, which is Coyote Ridge essentially. But we would like to be able to have that ability to buy land in that area. There's no specific property currently in mind, but just as those opportunities present themselves, we'd like to be able to take advantage of those. I can provide additional context here that when we took Assemblymember Kalra on a tour of the Diablo Range, we really focused primarily in that tour a couple of months ago on going up to the top of Mount Hamilton. It's kind of a windy road. There was a little bit of motion sickness along the way, but not too bad. But up there, Assemblymember Kalra was really impressed with what he saw and what especially Save Mount Diablo has been putting together in terms of resources of why this is an important area to protect, and even said that he would do research through his staff on potential conservancy, state conservancy over time, which doesn't create like a national park or anything, or even a state park. All it does is enable future funding to flow for possible land acquisitions and conservation easements. The next amendment regards the general manager's signature authority for expenditures. So this amendment, if approved by the legislature, would raise the signature authority from $25,000 to $50,000 without requiring prior board approval. And then commensurate with that, it would also raise the dollar amount for the formal bidding process to $100,000. So this would just put it in line with what other open space districts like Mid-Peninsula Open Space District, East Bay Parks, what their expenditure authority currently is. Also, and again, another amendment that would put us in line with those other open space districts that I mentioned is having the ability to create community facilities districts. These are often called Mellow Roost districts. They, for a new development, they would often provide for lighting and parks and things like that. And so if we had the ability to create community facilities districts, say when there's a new acquisition made, then we could potentially form a district around the area that would gain immediate benefit from that newly acquired property, say because they would have additional access to trails or something like that. And then we would be able to provide a source of ongoing funding for maintenance of that property that was protected. So these are the four amendments. The last three were approved by our board on October 26th. And our consultants in Sacramento, well, anyway, we already went through that. There we go. Our consultants in Sacramento are seeking an author for those three amendments. They've reached out to Senator Cortese, who's been a supporter of our work in the past. And so he just is in the process of considering all of the different requests for legislation in the coming year. If he takes that on, or if we decide on a different author, then the process that takes place would mean introduction of a bill in January, most likely, ushering it through the legislative process. For something like this that's relatively local and most likely non-controversial, there could even be a lot of the hearings that this legislation passes through. It could be on consent for those hearings. At least that's what we're told by our consultants. So it should be a relatively smooth process, knock on wood, if it makes it into a bill. And then if the legislature passes it in both houses by September through the legislative session, then by sometime in October, the governor would need to sign it for it to become law, and then it would be effective by the beginning of 2025. So that's kind of the process that is currently set up. So I did have other legislative updates, but before I move on to that, I'm happy to entertain any questions on the amendments. All right, I'll keep going. So other things that I wanted to update all of you on was that the legislation for these climate resource bond measures at the state of California, work is ongoing by the authors and their staff for the two bills, one in the Assembly and one in the Senate. They're not exactly equivalent, but both pretty significant chunks of money that would provide funding for nature-based solutions to climate change, which is very relevant to our work. So a lot of the monies that would go to the Coastal Conservancy or Wildlife Conservation Board or Department of Parks and Recreation would potentially be available through grants to the Open Space Authority. Each of those bills is for roughly $15 billion, which is pretty substantial considering how much has been in bond measures in the past. They're likely not going to stay at $15 billion. There are a number of different bond measures that the state is considering for the November 2024 ballot. They include measures not just for climate resource issues, but also for health and mental wellness, for education, for transportation, for housing. All of those are super important issues, of course, for the state. And there's only roughly $25 billion of available debt that the state can additionally take on before they start getting reductions in the quality of the bonds that they can sell, and then they don't earn as much. So if these two bills are asking for roughly $15 billion, that doesn't leave much room for the other types of bonds. And we know already that in March of 2024, the governor's priority is a mental health bond measure that I believe is for roughly $5 billion or so. So that's going to be in March. If that passes, then there's a remaining 20 billion or so that can be distributed to other bond measures for the fall. One thing I wanted to particularly point out for AB 1567 is that Assemblymember Garcia has included in that language for the Coyote Valley Conservation Program that the Open Space Authority administers. So that request was made by Assemblymember Calra. That language is currently in there at $30 million. That's the request. So that too is not likely to stay at $30 million, but hopefully it remains in the bond at some level. And Senator Cortese has also requested that same language and dollar amount be included in the Senate bill. So the next round of amendments we're hoping will then add that language to the Senate version of the climate resources bond. So that's the climate bonds. Also, I wanted to mention that there are two constitutional amendments that are slated to be on the November 2024 ballot. Assembly Constitutional Amendment, or ACA 1, which would reduce the voter threshold to 55% for local funding measures that provide infrastructure for things like housing, but also for natural infrastructure like open space and park facilities. So that would be very applicable to us. And if we do polling, as we may in the early spring timeframe, that looks like we might be able to place a ballot measure on the fall ballot, then we would only need 55% if what we're putting in our expenditure plan complies with that constitutional amendment. So that could be a big plus.
What's it currently at? What percent?
So through the chair, the current voter threshold for any local measure is 2/3. So when we passed Measure Q in 2014 and Measure T in 2020, those both required 2/3. And then ACA 13, another constitutional amendment for the November 2024 ballot, that one would require any citizens initiative that seeks to change the voter threshold of a funding measure or anything for, from a fee to a special tax to parcel tax or something. It would require that any measure that seeks to change that threshold require that same threshold itself. And the reason that the state put that on there is because there's a citizens initiative that did qualify for the November 2024 ballot put on there by the Business Roundtable that would seek to increase to 2/3 any future citizens initiative for any kind of special tax or fee. So the constitutional amendment, if that passes, then it would simultaneously require that citizens initiative to need 2/3 to pass because it's asking for 2/3 for what it's affecting down the road. A little bit convoluted, but anyway, hopefully I mentioned that in a way that it's somewhat understandable. So anyway, those are the other legislative updates that I had to share. And with that, I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mark. I think it was clear to me how those thresholds impacted one another. I am not seeing any questions from the committee. At this time, I would encourage members of the public that may wish for the opportunity to do so to speak at this time.
I'll fill out a card later. This will be a question. You mentioned that one of the proposals you would like to enact is adjusting, truing up, I'll call it, the general manager's signature authority. I just went through this with my city manager because she keeps putting items up at the very top limit. I said, why don't you raise your limit? And she said that she was actually restricted by, I forgot which state code, maybe public resources. But anyway, there's a state law that says how much you can do before you have to get different kinds of approvals. I'm just wondering if you have that, or is this unique to special districts and open space authorities? Just a curiosity question. Thank you.
At your discretion.
Yeah, through the chair, and thank you for the question. So the Open Space Authority has I should say this way, the Open Space Authority's Enabling Act is in a unique section of the Public Resources Code in California. So it's not governed by section 5500 of the PRC that governs other open space districts. And there might be other sections that I'm not aware of that govern other types of agencies. But we are in section 35,100 that is unique to only the Open Space Authority. So that's really the only thing. That's really the only thing that's governing our limitation to raise that expenditure authority. And we did have our own legal counsel do research, but of course, as it goes through the legislative process, legal counsel at the state of California will make sure that that's the case. But that's my understanding.
Overwhelmingly detailed response. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the public? All right. Thank you, Mark. Our last item on the agenda is an informational report from Caroline about our meeting date for next year.
Thank you. This will be a short presentation. But basically, I just wanted to give the I'm sorry. My name is Caroline Hernandez. I'm clerk of the board. And I wanted to present a brief overview of the schedule for the Citizens Advisory Committee for 2024. So per our CAC Handbook of Guidelines and Responsibilities, it states that the CAC will meet monthly on the fourth Monday of every month, every other month at 7 p.m. We have compiled this the schedule for next year. For our 6 meetings. There is an asterisk on May. The fourth Monday of the month of May is Memorial Day. So we will be bumping that meeting up 1 week, but all the rest are the fourth Mondays of the month. I also wanted to, and all the meetings will take place in person at 7 o'clock, unless otherwise indicated. I do want to point out that we will be likely scheduling 2 special joint meetings next year with the board of directors. just one. One special joint meeting with the Board of Directors, either on April 11th or April 25th, which are the two regular meetings for the board that in the month of April. And that will be held at 6:30. The topics of which will be given closer to the meeting date. So I just wanted to encourage staff or our CAC to review the calendar for next year and save the dates for those two April meetings. And I will likely be polling either in February or March to narrow down a particular date that works best for everybody. So I'm happy, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take those.
Awesome, thank you. Go ahead, Eddie.
This might be a question for you or Caroline, I'm not sure. But what would be the best way to poll the committee to see if there's any interest in moving this meeting to an earlier time? And if there is, then presenting it to the board consideration of the bylaw change.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before, but I think that's what it would have to be, was
Mhm.
we would have to amend the bylaw.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Our handbook of guidelines and responsibilities, yes.
Yeah. So how do we, so if Ed wanted to get that on the, like, what
Would that be?
what would that mechanism look like? Like,
In the past, revisions to the handbook have been brought by a subcommittee. The CAC has appointed a subcommittee of members who have studied a particular topic or item and brought a recommendation back to the full CAC for discussion. And at that point, the full body could decide whether it would want to make the recommendation to the board on those potential amendments.
So would it be reasonable to propose to Ed that he reach out to members of the CAC strictly on a one-on-one basis to avoid any problems with Brown Act? And maybe gauge interest in whether you're alone on this island or whether other people share your, and if there's interest, maybe then you could propose that we form this subcommittee. Would that?
I
that's
would
illegal.
I would avoid the one-on-one conversations. Just, for the sake of transparency, we can continue to have these discussions in open session. And that way all the board members can then provide their thoughts on the matter. We can put an agenda item on the CAC's agenda for next year to discuss looking at the handbook, and then from there we can appoint the subcommittee and then go from there.
Would it be
Because we could have some really lengthy discussions on when to start this meeting, and I don't know if that's time well spent, but yeah.
Yeah, I do know there's several members that would like it earlier and staff also. So I'm wondering if the members could be polled by email for any interest, just to see
Yes,
if there's interest to even pursue or waste time on it.
I would have to let me think about that, how that would look like. I could maybe put together a general survey of questions for the CAC, and maybe that could be one of them. And then I'd be happy to share the results with everybody.
Can we do like a straw poll right here? Can we, just can I
This-
invite people to
this is
come
a
off the
forum.
mic and say, hey, early or.
What did you have in mind?
So my experience was, I used to be a season ticket holder for the Sharks, so we sat in this season ticket holder meeting with our account reps before one season. And and the game started at 7:30, and they said, how many people want the games to start earlier? And I swear, it was half the room raised their hand. And it was like, how many people want the games to start later? And I swear, it's half the room. So I don't wanna please half to smite the other half, that's all. I'm flexible, so go ahead, Justin.
Oh, I already asked, what did you have in mind? Well, my preference is one thing, but to find out if there's any interest, it would probably be good to ask, do you have specific times? Would you even want to change it? if you have a range of times that might work better.
If you don't mind, I will flex my chair advantage here, and I'd say, I'm just interested in earlier, later, same. For now, I would just be interested in the answer to that question. So Dan, do you have it earlier, later, or the same as far as when the meetings start? Okay, Raj?
Same.
Justin's the same? Okay, I could, I could go 30 minutes either way.
Well, you didn't have to decide yet.
Earlier. No, I'm still asking, Allison,
I'd say earlier or same is fine.
earlier,
So
and
that's
earlier.
only what, 40%?
About half of us. So, yeah, so. It doesn't seem overwhelming, but it doesn't seem like people aren't super opposed to it either. I guess we can talk about it next meeting, maybe we'll have more folks here.
So should we do a poll in the meantime by email? Or put this on the agenda for
Well,
next?
What I can do is, so I've been summarizing the meetings for the CAC for the members who have who are unable to attend in an email, so I can put that question in the email, and if people have a preference, they can email me directly and let me know.
Okay, that sounds good. We're putting it on the agenda via backup for now. We can do that now.
I am hesitant to invest that heavily in this just yet.
Okay. Sounds fair.
Mr. Chair, if I can offer a suggestion for
Yeah.
consideration, we'd be happy to agendize either specifically this question for January, or perhaps a broader question of other handbook updates. Maybe we look at it as a group where maybe some ideas could be shared. If a subcommittee should be formed, that's up to you all, but we could agendize that. You can have that conversation, create the subcommittee if you so desire, and go from there. That'd be helpful.
I appreciate that. Again, like. There's no limit to the amount of time that we could spend philosophically discussing the handbook. The fact that 6:30 might be slightly better than 7, which is better than 7:15, but maybe not better than 7:30, but it's definitely better than 6:45, like I'm not sure if that's it, if that's something we really want to dive in and invest a lot of resources in, and because even here it was saying it's same or maybe earlier and earlier, but like I not drum beating passion, right? It just it's not drum beating passion. But I would like to pursue this. I would like to know more about this, and I'm certainly not I wouldn't.
Just to get,
I don't want to shoot this down either.
just to get the facts.
Yeah, but put it on the agenda, because I really could, and I could see this, like, somebody saying, but let's get into like what our massages are and our soccer games and all these other things, and trying to work on individual schedules, like when we have something that works.
That's not what I'm driving at.
I know.
That's just like 6, 5, 4, 10 a.m.
Well, I work full time, like 4 is out of the question, 5 is out of the question, right? So. We found a question. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Pinpoint it a little better, I think would be worth at least getting that far.
Okay. So now we move on from our informational and new business items. We have some reports. The first being our board liaison report. Let's do that one. Thank you, Tom. Good to see you.
Good evening, CAC members and staff. I'm sure most of you already know me. But I saw some new faces here. Last few years, I didn't get the chance to attend this meeting. But anyway, let me introduce myself. I'm Calvin Gill. and serving last 16 years as a board of directors representing District 7. Mark, thank you very much. You already take some kind of my updates and then make my life a little bit easier. Okay, so actually I'm the liaison board members, alternate liaison. So Gerneda is the actually the board liaison, but she is for some reasons asked me to just take her positions. So I'm going to be update only this month. Only one meeting was this month, and whatever the staff present on that meeting, I'm going to be just give the update. There are actually 3 items, new items was staff presented on that meeting. 2 items was actually audited. One is the financial audit, and then the second one is Mayor T and then Mayor Q audit presented by Alisa. I think Alisa, right? It was even though she's like me, first time she just came to the I'm not actually first time came. She came first time to present that, but she did a fantastic job. That was both item actually bring to the board for approval, and then unanimously those both item was approved. The third item was actually I forget that is a education's program, some kind of items presented by Terry Rogobe, and I really love that items. It was even the informational item, the way they present, fantastic. It was not only valuable information, but it is entertainable as well. We try to taste the local grown dry fruit, right? Was really good. I think on that meeting is only 3 main item was there. Than the 4th one, actually not, you can say, not say that is itemized, agenda itemized, but it is just the introduction. Our HR officer introduced one of the staff members, actually is the HR coordinator. Her name might be, you already met that, Aline Harris. And she's really a smart girl, and I'm sure she will try to do her best to bring that agency, especially on the HR side, to the next level of agency's progress. I think that's it. I don't want to take more time, and if anybody has any questions, definitely I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Director Gill. I see no question. Confirming that, that brings us to our general manager or staff report. I hear that our general manager is celebrating a birthday, so that means it's a staff report.
I have a very short update, and that is to just to put on everybody's radar. Annually in January, the very first thing that you're going to do at your January 22nd meeting, check my notes here, is election of officers. So officers serve 1-year terms. We have the chair and vice chair seats that would be we'll go through the election process again, and I just wanted to let everybody know that. Since it's kind of first thing in January, it's kind of hard to think about in the moment. So give you a little bit of lead time on that. And speaking to Dr. Gill's comments about the educational update, I think we have Terry and Michelle slotted to come in and see you all in January or March to give a similar update to you too. So you'll get a unique experience, I'm sure, but an equally delightful one. With that, I'll pass it to Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark Landgraf, External Affairs Manager. I had an update for the group on behalf of the General Manager who's out on her birthday. since our last meeting in September, regarding the Andrade property. So recall, this is regarding a 4.6 acre property being proposed for development of a large home. Our board of directors on September 14th decided to take the action unprecedented for our agency to exercise eminent domain. Following that approval of what was called the resolution of necessity, the landowners exercised their right to submit an objection to the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, and did so before expiration of the 30-day window in which they had to provide that objection. County Council wrote a report recommending the supervisors deny the objection. Per the landowner's request, the Open Space Authority staff met with them prior to the date when the Board of Supervisors would consider the objection. However, the landowner's proposal was to actually increase the footprint of the development, not reduce it, so no agreement was reached at that time. At the November 7th Board of Supervisors meeting, those present, Supervisor Chavez had recused herself from the item, voted unanimously to deny the landowner's objection. You may have seen an article in the Mercury News written by Paul Rogers that came out shortly before the supervisors meeting, and then with a follow-up article shortly afterwards that described the result. So at this point, the authority's next step is to move forward with legal action that requires a judge and jury to decide on a fair price as compensation to the landowner. Not sure exactly when all that will happen, but it could take around a year, we're told, for that process to be completed. We will also, of course, be happy to meet with the landowners if they wish to settle before that process proceeds. As I'm sure you're all aware, this is a sensitive matter. While admittedly this one is different, it's our board's legal prerogative to take up sensitive matters of legal significance like this in closed session, just like they do with active negotiations on land purchases, for instance. So we ask that you treat this in a similarly sensitive manner. We know this can be a polarizing issue, so we would ask that if you get questions from the members of the public, as you're representing the Open Space Authority, that you please refer them to our Public Information Officer, Charlotte Graham, who's our point person for inquiries like this. We want to be fair and consistent with our responses, so this is a good way of ensuring as much fairness as we can. And Charlotte has business cards with her contact info, and you're welcome to grab some when the meeting is through. So that's really the information that I had to share. Update.
Okay, thank you. And I see a stack of business cards. I don't know if this is an appropriate time for questions, so I'm just gonna keep right on moving to committee member reports. Are there any? Ed?
Just a quick one. I was part of the group that went on the Valley Water Tour to Anderson Dam, see that tour last month. Very interesting to see that up close and personal. Right there where they're boring everything and the tunneling and right there in the construction site. It was very interesting. So who actually organized that from here? Does anyone know? If the invitation was from Joelle, she organized it, but I'm not sure who actually put it together.
Through the chair, I thought our Natural Resources Manager, Aaron Rivera, did, but I'm not certain.
Anyway, it was outstanding. It was the chief engineer that's in charge of the project and other dams within Valley Water. And it's hopefully we're going to get another opportunity at some milestone to do that again in the future. And I would encourage everybody to do it. It's amazing.
Sounds like a very cool tour.
That is all.
Okay, any other committee member reports? We do have one subcommittee assembled. I don't know if we have representative actually maybe Brian was on the subcommittee. Do we have a report from the subcommittee? No. That is certainly okay. All right, then at 8:35. I will adjourn us until next year. And I will see you all January 22nd at 7 o'clock. Thank you so much. Thank you.